If you're like every parent ever, you've probably had to deal with disrespectful or defiant kids, right? Or maybe you've had to repeat yourself a million times before your child will do anything you ask them to do. You might have even tried to set up a reward chart to try to get your child to do the things you want them to do, and you might have even realized that that didn't quite work so well, or at least not as well as you thought it would. I'm Dr. Eric Newman. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist with over 20 years of experience working with kids. And in this video, we're going to talk about 7 mistakes that parents often make when trying to set up a reward chart for their children. And you're going to want to stick around to the end of the video because after we go through those 7 mistakes, I'm going to give you 3 pro tips to take your approach to the next level. So let's get started. So most of you are probably familiar with the concept of a reward chart. You kind of know what that looks like. But in case you don't, it's basically this chart that has target behaviors along the left side. It's got time frames along the top. And then it's got these spaces that are meant for putting stickers or points or check marks or whatever to reward your child for the given target behaviors at given intervals. So that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I want to spend too much more time on that. But there are these 7 mistakes that we're going to talk about that people often make when they're using these charts. So the first mistake that people often make is that they're trying to target too many behaviors. So you really only want to target 3 to 5 behaviors at a time. And that's assuming your child is what we call neurotypical. If your child has some sort of neurodivergent process, they have a neurodevelopmental disorder that's been identified, ADHD, autism, a lot of times you're going to want to make that even smaller. It might just be 1 to 3 behaviors. So you want to make sure that you're not trying to target too many behaviors at once, because when you try to target everything, you pretty much accomplish nothing. So that brings me to the second mistake people often make, which is that when you're trying to target only a few behaviors at a time, it becomes difficult to figure out which behaviors to prioritize. You may have a whole list of behaviors you want to address, but the ones you want to prioritize are either going to be the ones that are the biggest concern, and a lot of times this might be things that are like aggressive behaviors and things you really need to get a handle on quickly, but also you want to really focus on the behaviors where you think you have the greatest likelihood of success, because when you set your child up for success, then they develop a sense of pride around meeting those target behaviors. And then that sort of inertia sets in and you get off on the right foot. The third mistake parents often make when trying to identify target behaviors is to make their targets too vague. You want to make sure that you're very, very specific. And this is even more important for children with identified neurodevelopmental disorders or suspected neurodivergence of some kind. Saying something like clean your room may not be nearly specific enough. You may need to put on that behavior chart very specific tasks like make your bed, pick up socks from the floor, things like that. And same thing goes with other routines like get ready for bed or get ready for school. That may be far too vague. You may have to put things like brush your teeth, take a shower. But being more vague than that tends not to go well a lot of the time. Real quick, if you're getting value out of this video, I'd appreciate it if you'd like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It'll help us get our content out to more people just like you. The fourth mistake parents often make is setting unrealistic expectations. Now, this is important because it's really important to set your child up for success. You want to make sure that the behaviors that you're targeting are actually achievable, that they have the skills to accomplish those. Because if they don't, then there's no amount of motivating them to do those things that's going to get them to actually do it. They're just going to get frustrated instead. Okay, so these first 4 mistakes have been about setting target behaviors. Now we're going to look at the rewards for those behaviors. And so the 5th mistake parents often make is not having enough options for rewards. You want to create a menu of rewards, and it starts with the most immediate rewards. So on that chart, you're going to award stars or stickers or smiley faces or check marks or something for those behaviors when they're met or when it's time to measure those. But you also want to have like short, medium, and long-term rewards, and you want to have menu options for those rewards essentially. At the end of each day, you might want to have a specific short-term reward or set of rewards like, screen time, getting to watch a show, iPad time, video game time. And then at the end of each week, you might want to have a menu of rewards to celebrate successes over the course of the entire week. So that might include things like getting to pick where you have dinner on Friday night or going to the park on Saturday. And then there should be even longer term rewards. You could have, let's say, after a month of doing well, you do something really special, like go see a movie, or you have, you can buy a game or something like that. Now, it's important to remember here that a reward, by definition, is something that is motivating. And it's often the case that kids are not motivated by the same thing all the time. So that's why it's really important to always be assessing what those motivators are and to have them build out that menu of rewards so they can choose from the things that are on the menu and make the choice that's going to be most motivating to them at that time. All right, the sixth mistake that I often see parents making is expecting perfection. A lot of times parents will say, okay, you don't earn this reward if you don't earn all of your points or all of your stickers for a given day or a given week or a given month. And really, you want to make sure that you're being reasonable. You want to make sure that you're coming up with a reasonable point at which, let's say you earn 75% of the points for a day or 80%, or if there's only 3 target behaviors, then it's 66% or something like that. You can always increase that percentage as time goes on and your child is more consistently able to meet the expectation. But you don't want to make it impossible to meet in the first place or so hard to meet that it causes frustration and loss of motivation. And that brings me to the seventh mistake that a lot of people will make, which is not only using rewards, but also using demerits. Now, demerits is the idea that not only do you earn points for doing well, but if you don't do something right, you lose points. And that's really not the object of a behavior chart system. You want to earn points when you're doing well and meeting the expectations and not earn points when you're not. But if you start to use demerits in a system like this, then it really causes frustration, a lot of frustration, and it causes loss of motivation. So you want to use rewards, not use demerits. Okay, so I told you that at the end of the 7 mistakes, I was now going to provide you a few tips. All right, so tip number 1. You want to make sure that you're being clear about the difference between a reward and an entitlement, right? So kids are entitled to very few things. They're entitled to food and shelter and things like that, right? But they're not entitled to screen time. They're not entitled to play video games. That is a privilege. So you want to make sure that they understand that they are earning privileges and that these are not things they're entitled to. And a lot of times this may be obvious to you as the parent, but it's not obvious to your child unless you state it explicitly. So that means that you need to state up front that, okay, we're setting up this system because these are things that are actually privileges. They're things you earn. And as long as you behave the way I need you to behave and you meet these expectations, then you will earn those privileges. But if you don't do those things, you're just not going to earn those privileges. And this is an important reframing. It's a reframing from I'm taking things away from you when things are not earned to you're just not earning the thing. All right, pro tip number 2. A lot of people get worried that with behavior charts that they're teaching their child to only care about doing the right thing when there's a reward in it for them. Now, there's a couple of reasons why. Now, I actually understand this. It does make sense. But there's a couple of reasons why I wouldn't worry so much about this and you can do something about it. Number one, a lot of life is doing things for reward, right? Like you probably wouldn't do all the things you need to do at your job. Even if you love your job, you're not going to do everything that your job entails if you didn't get some kind of reward out of it, right? But also what you really want to do here is you want to pair with the reward, which is and the reward is an extrinsic motivator, meaning it comes from outside, it's external. You want to pair the extrinsic reward with an intrinsic reward, which is something like, say, praise. And when you pair the reward with praise, then over time, your child learns that intrinsic motivation, even if at the beginning, they're only getting the extrinsic motivation. All right, and finally, pro tip number 3. If you're struggling to implement these strategies, and there are a lot more, this isn't all there is, and I'm sure I'll make future videos on other strategies. But if you're struggling with these strategies, you should pursue help. Try going to therapy. You can find a therapist who specializes in parent training and parenting strategies. And that person can help you to fine-tune your approach, to identify the spots where things aren't working as well as they could, and to develop your system a little bit better. Now, if you're struggling with a wider range of challenges and you know you need to find some sort of help like this, but you don't really know where to start, check out this video over here on pursuing help for your struggling child. On the other hand, if you're worried about pursuing help for your child because you're worried that that process is going to require a diagnosis of some kind, and you're concerned about or hesitant about getting a diagnosis, check out this video over here on the pros and cons of pursuing a mental health diagnosis. All right, I hope this was helpful, and that's going to do it for today. Take care.